Hamas The American Center for Law and Justice, long an advocate for America's top Middle East ally, is asking the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations to fight a plan to turn over $65 million to Palestinians to teach them to fight Israel in the courts. UN officials said they would pay the Palestinian Authority to wage lawfare against the State of Israel, ACLJ said. Lawfare is the practice of using courts against an enemy to tie up their time or win a public relations victory. In the United States, for example, Muslim groups such as the Council on American-Islamic Relations have filed discrimination lawsuits that drag out for years to tie up organizations that expose its radical ties. ACLJ said the United Nations Development Assistance Framework published their intention to spend millions of dollars funding anti-Israel discrimination. These funds will be set aside to actively train Palestinians on how to engage in lawfare against the State of Israel. In response, ACLJ has written to UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, asking her to continue defending Israel and foil the lawfare plan if she can. It has come to light that organizations within the United Nations have budgeted to set aside funds to assist the Palestinian Authority in the waging of lawfare against the State of Israel. Such budgetary allotments often go unnoticed by the news, but the size of the allotment, not to mention its purpose, nearly $65 million USD over the next 4 years, coming on top of aid already being given to the PA, is startling, the letter said. See the petition that urges the United States to leave the UN, to encourage its friends to leave the UN and even to deport the UN from American soil. Even worse, now that Hamas, a recognized terrorist organization, has signed a unity deal with the PA, it means that the UN is funding a terrorist legal war lawfare against our ally Israel. And since the US funds the UN, upwards of 22% of the UN's annual budget, it's now a taxpayer-funded jihadist legal war on Israel, the ACLJ report said. With various UN officials having admitted to anti-Israel bias over the last few years, it might have seemed that the UN had run out of shocking things they could do to rally against our truest ally in the Middle East, but they still managed to find new opportunities. The proposal of the anti-Israel slush fund for Palestinian agitators includes 16 different UN organizations that have proposed a multi-year budget that involves some humanitarian goals, like advancing women's rights and educating children, but also includes a new $65 million budget to train Palestinians on how to litigate against Israel in international courts and forums. ACLJ said, Madam Ambassador, it was you who proclaimed less than a year ago that the days of Israel bashing are over. You have explained in the past how you have no patience for the kind of bullying Israel has had to stand for, and that your tenure at the UN has changed the tone for the way the UN conducts business regarding Israel, the letter begins. We commend the position you have expressed on behalf of the United States that anti-Semitism must not be tolerated and that Israel cannot be used as the scapegoat for all of the Middle East's problems. The letter continued, moreover, this is not just about Israel. By funding Palestinian lawfare, the UN is incentivizing the PA to act against its own interests by continuing to dodge direct negotiations with Israel and instead waste time and resources on trying to delegitimize Israel in the international arena. Further, there is no way of guaranteeing that these funds won't simply be channeled into supporting terrorism, whether by virtue of the fact that the terrorist organization Hamas is currently a partner in the Palestinian government, or because the PA continues to pay generous benefits to terrorists and their families. The organizations building the slush fund for terror, however, have overseers in the General Assembly, the Secretariat, and the Economic and Social Council. The United States plays a major role in all of these forums, and its influence can be leveraged to bring a halt to this improper allocation of funds, the ACLJ said. We urge you to do everything in your power to block this initiative as part of your effort to bring about a fundamental change in the way the UN does business in relation to Israel and the Palestinians. See the petition that urges the United States to leave the UN, to encourage its friends to leave the UN, and even to deport the UN from American soil.